Great, wonderful. So what we're going to be talking about in today's presentation is how to prepare for this job search, this COVID job search. 3 things that you need for your job search, and you know what? I'm not including the resume as one of those 3 things. You'll understand why. How to manage your time and stay motivated, which if you've been doing job search for any amount of time, staying motivated is really challenging. I know that. I've seen it. I've been there. And the 4th thing I'm going to talk about is why LinkedIn is probably even more important to your job search than your resume. So that's what we're going to talk about. Um, I want to tell you a little bit about what I have noticed since COVID started and how that has impacted the job search. Because I think a lot of people have questions. And if this is the first time you've ever been seeking a new job recently or ever, then some of these things are normal and some of them are new. So let me help you understand what I've been seeing and what I want to let you know about, because I really think it's an advantage to you. Number one, there is more opportunity, more availability of remote work. And that's a great thing because more and more companies are saying, we don't need you to come into the office. So when you think about that, if you don't need to go into the office, couldn't you apply for a job that is further away than you want to commute to, or even perhaps in a different state? So that the fact that employers are more open and there are more remote jobs available really increases job seekers' opportunity to find employment. So that's a real bonus for you all. Virtual interviewing is the norm, right? You're not going to be hauled into an office to do interviewing. And so what that means is that you want to make sure that your technology skills and your on-camera presentation skills are up to date so that you can understand some of the nuances of your nonverbal and verbal communication on camera. The other thing that we have noticed is that networking or having conversations face to face with people is really challenging right now. There's just not that same ability to run into people that you may run into or attend an event and see people. But what we have in place is this really wonderful technology called Zoom, which, a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses, a lot of places have begun implementing to make sure that that communication still happens, those conversations are still happening. So we're not all still stuck in our home with no one else to talk to. I think one of the cool things that I've noticed is that because people aren't going into the office all the time or as much, they have more freedom in their workday, which means if you wanted to have a conversation with somebody you used to work with, they probably have more flexibility, more freedom in their schedule to have those conversations. Because, yeah, they're busy at work, but they don't have their boss looking over their shoulder. And the last thing that is sort of unique to what's going on right now is the fact that these are the industries that tend to be doing the most hiring right now. And so as I go through this, let me tell you, the food service, online learning, delivery services, warehousing and distribution, financial institutions, and healthcare, right? Those are all the types of businesses we've seen grow over the last 6 months by leaps and bounds. And that's been pretty fun to watch from where I sit. But for a lot of people who have been displaced or have lost their job in any of those any fields, this is sort of concerning because they're not sure where else to look. So let's talk about this a little bit. I am not suggesting, unless you really want to, that you go get a job in food service. It's not easy work, right? And if you don't want to do it, then I'm not going to push you there. But I will say any company that does food service, because they have increased services, they're increasing their services, has become challenging. They still have back office work. So accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll. They still need people to do their marketing. So a lot of the roles that you may think are gone are not necessarily gone in some of these industries. Online learning has been huge. We don't have any quote unquote online learning in businesses in our area, but we know that a lot of companies have been adapting to online learning. And if you go to some of the remote learning, the remote job posting websites, and I'll share that with you, I promise, you'll see some places where you might be able to step into online learning. Warehouse services, we're all sending packages, everything's going through the mail. So the distribution centers and delivery services, all of those are huge right now. And again, I'm not saying you have to deliver packages or that you have to be a driver or anything like that. I'm thinking that business is growing. Think about other services they might need. They may need customer service people. They may need accounting people. They may need marketing people. So look in those kinds of businesses that are in that growing industry right now. Financial institutions are doing very well right now, and the interest rates has dropped. So a lot of people are applying for mortgages and they don't have enough people. So if you have a background in banking or finance or mortgage assessment, anything like that, financial institutions are doing very well. And healthcare, we know, is inundated. And again, I'm not suggesting that you become a nurse or a CNA, but look at the back office opportunities within the healthcare world. Telehealth is being implemented. So they need project managers, they need schedulers, they need all kinds of different roles that may be a suitable transition for you. I think the thing to remember is that right now companies um, might have to be a little bit more flexible in who they hire. In other words, they may be less picky right now in order to fill some of these jobs they have a dire need to fill. They may be less picky about making sure everybody has exactly the right background and the right experience. They may be more willing to take a risk. So those are the COVID job search trends that I've noticed. But before you even begin looking for work, you need to be crystal clear about these three things. Number one, what do you want to do? Not, I want any job. Specifically, what do you want to do? Number two, where do you want to work? What kind of business? Small, medium, large, nonprofit, for-profit? Do you know the industry? Do you know the types of companies you want to work for? That's the kind of thinking and logic and hard work that you as a job seeker have to be clear about before you even start. And then the other question that of course you have to answer is, how much do I need to make? And being able to do some of that research on what is the salary for these kinds of roles that I'm now investigating. Because you don't want to get halfway into an interview to realize that you'll never make the kind of money you made before, unless that money isn't as important as it used to be. So those are the three things that you must be crystal clear about. And I can't go into all of that right now, right? But you know that though if you realize these are the three things that you have to be clear on, you can get help in any one of those three areas. There are three more things that you need, and I'm going to talk about these too: star stories, target companies, and your list of 100 contacts. So part of what may help you identify what you really want to do next is identifying accomplishment stories or star stories. These star stories are used in answers to interviews. They're used on your crafting your resume. They're also a great self-assessment piece. If you develop 25 stories of times where you've really enjoyed what you were doing in the workplace, there's going to be a pattern that emerges. You're going to see, oh, all of my stories involved my being analytical with data, or all of these stories involved my helping somebody get better at what they were doing, training, or all of these stories had to do with my helping customers, right? Those kinds of things can be clarifying and provide you with the insight to better fine tune what it is you want to do next. But as I said, these star stories are also going to be used on your resume, and they're also going to be used during an interview, because during an interview, someone's going to ask you the question, tell me about a time you were successful in your last job. And you need to be able to answer that story. And the framework that you're going to use is the STAR acronym. S stands for what was the situation. T stands for what was the task. Actions, what were the actions I took. And R, results, what were the results of what I did. Every answer you give will walk the listener through the answering these four parts to your interview answer. So it will ensure that your answer is full, robust, and not just a short little, well, I liked everything I did, or they were happy with all my work. You really want to be able to tell mini stories, and STAR is a great acronym to know and to remember, and also for you to do some brainstorming with. So here are just some questions that you may want to take a snapshot of or think about getting answered, because again, these are things that you want to make sure that your future employer know about you. Questions like, what are you proud of doing at work? Was there a time where you improved productivity? Have you ever streamlined a process or operations? Were you ever recognized, formally or informally, for the work that you did? Were you ever selected to be part of a team or to train a group of people? Each one of those has a story behind it. So you would walk through, this was the situation, this was the task that that was being asked of me, these were the actions that I took, and this was the result or the outcome of what we did. So STARS are a really important formula, a really important acronym. And if you haven't been exposed to it yet, now is a great time, because this is really going to help you be a great interviewer and really hit on the needs of what the information employers are looking for. You may have also, I'll just throw this out, you might have heard it called PAR, which stands for problem, action, result, CAR, challenge, action, result, SCAR, situation, challenge, action, result. There are lots of different acronyms, but they're all based on 3 or 4 parts to the story. So this would be an important part of your homework, to make sure that you're fully prepared and you know enough about yourself and your successes. I love challenging people. Tell me one of your favorite STAR stories, right? Because I think that really, when you tell this STAR story to a friend or during an interview, you light up like a Christmas tree. Your eyes get twinkly. It really shows that you were excited about what you did versus some of the other answers that you give in an interview where you're really nervous and you don't shine at all. So STAR stories allow you to shine. The next thing that I recommend that every new job seeker needs is a list of, and I know 50 sounds like a lot, let me hedge that and say 30 to 50 companies that you might want to work for. So people are like, oh, are there even that many companies around? I'm like, yes, absolutely. There are thousands of companies. We just don't know about all of them. So carve time out, and I would say no longer than a day, to really begin just creating a list of companies that you think you might want to work for. They could be companies that were competitors or similar to what you used to do. They could be top companies in Rochester or wherever you want to work next. They could be best places to work. Glassdoor has best places to work. They could be startups, and don't forget about small to medium-sized businesses. They generally don't get the same publicity. There's not as much written about them. They're not in the news as much. And so oftentimes we don't know about them, but they all have opportunities. And people always say, well, I want more stability. And won't I find that in a larger company? And I say that's not necessarily true any longer. And I have a question for Stacy, but a plug for Stacy. My bet is Stacy and the team at the Macedon Public Library probably have resources available that could help you in creating a list of 30 to 50 target companies.
Oh, definitely. Not a problem. We have databases, we have books, we have all sorts of things, and we're happy to help anyone.
That's great, right? And so I love librarians, and because they're trained experts. They have gone to school and they know about these resources. We are just hacks. We're trying to Google it and try and find it. Use the professionals. They know what they're doing. Go ask a librarian for help. Tell them what you're looking for. I'm looking for companies that are in the Rochester area or whatever that might be similar to what I used to do. Can you help me? And they'll help you. So there you've got somebody to help you do this kind of work that on your own might be more challenging. The other thing, which is really simple to do because you have all this information up in your head, is to create a list of 100 people you know. A lot of people talk about networking, and a lot of people think that's an awful word. It sort of sounds like used car salesman, right? I don't want to network. But what I say all the time is, I don't want you talking to people that you don't know. You shouldn't be talking with anybody you don't know. Stranger danger, right? You want to talk to the people that you know and who know you. Those are the first people that you want to reach out to and talk about your job search and ask them for advice information, or recommendations. I call it AIR, advice, information, recommendations, and that's all you're asking for. You're not asking for a job, you're asking for AIR. So here's your challenge. I want you to make a list, and this list has to be on paper. You can't rely on whatever you've got on your phone, because that's not good enough. You need to have it on paper, and that could be on a spreadsheet or a Word document, or actually on a lined sheet of paper, which I actually prefer to use. But I want you to write down all of your friends, and then all of your family, and then all of your neighbors. I don't care if you don't like all your neighbors, just write their names down, right? No filtering. Write all the people that are service providers. So the person that comes and repairs your leaky faucet, the person that cuts your hair, the person that cleans your teeth, somebody who may do handiwork, whatever. Those service providers that you would regularly call or contact when you needed help with something. Make a list of all those people. Past coworkers, make a list of all the people that you used to work with. Again, don't filter people out because you don't think they would remember you or you don't think they like you. That's not what we've got going on here. Make a list of those names. How about the people that you volunteer with? Even if you just know their first name, make a list of all the people you volunteer with. And if you are part of a professional association or organization or professional club, write down all the names of people that you know from that organization. And if you worked in a business that had vendors or suppliers or contractors that would come in or you would do business with, like maybe it was the internet guy or the company who provided internet or telephone service. I know this sounds silly, but I want you to make a list of all of these people. And by the end of the time you get to the bottom of this list, you will probably have about 100 people that you know. These are people that you know. And I'll talk about what you're going to do with that list in a second. But creating these lists and making sure that you've got the 25 star stories, the 50 target companies, and the 100 targets, that becomes the foundation and the basis for what you're going to do moving forward with your job search, which sounds very different, I think, to a lot of people than what they used to do, because where your other job search always began by going to Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, right? I don't want you doing that as the first step. I want you doing this stuff first. Because what we know is happening today is I want you to be shifting what you're doing. I want you to search for people. I don't want you searching for jobs. So search for people, not for jobs, because people have the power to provide AIR, advice, information, or recommendations. And that is what you're looking for, because that advice, information, or recommendations will lead to new contacts and can lead to job opportunities. So this is what people say to me all the time. Oh, it's been so long. I don't even know what to say if I reach out to somebody I used to work with. That's going to be awkward. And I say, you know what? It's not if you make it human. Human to human. Show interest in the person that you want to reach out to. And it's not a wham bam thank you. It is, the first email is just about reestablishing your connection, your relationship. So you want to be human. And here are 3 different ways to do this. You could put the subject of your email, "It's been too long. The last time we spoke was over 3 years ago. How time flies. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing, what's new and what's going on with work. Period, end." That's all you're going to ask, because they're going to respond to that. And then you can have a conversation based on that. Eventually, it might be 2 emails from now, but eventually they're going to say, "And what's going on with you?" Now you have permission to talk about your job search. For anybody who feels uncomfortable about reaching out and telling people they're looking for a job, I'm saying that's fine. You don't need to do that. Show interest in the people first, and they will reciprocate and show interest in you. So you never have to feel yucky about asking for help or asking for air, because people will invite you to ask your question or ask for help. I hope that makes sense, right? Because so many people I know, I'm an introvert. I honestly do not like talking to people I don't know. I have a few really good friends, but other than that, I don't talk to many people, and I'm fine with that, right? This COVID thing has been great for me. I'm holed up in my house. Life is good. I do get a little stir crazy, as I'm sure we all do. But But this is what I do all the time. I reach out to people that I know. I have one friend, Anne, and Anne knows everybody in Rochester. So if I have a request or I'm trying to find a new job or look for a new client, I go to my friend Anne and said, Anne, because I talk to her all the time, I don't need to break the ice. Anne, I've got a favor to ask. Do you know anybody who knows anybody that might be interested in this service or anybody who works for this company? And Anne has such a huge network. She can get back to me in like a day, and she loves doing that. And so that's my challenge to all of you. When you think about your friends and family and the people that you know, do you have your own version of Anne, somebody who knows everybody and just loves making introductions or loves helping out? Those are really good people to identify. You want to use them cautiously. You don't want to go to them with every question and every request for help, but use them because they love to do that. They love to be that kind of help for people. I've said we're going to be asking for air advice, information, and recommendations, and we're never, ever, ever going to ask for a job because that's ucky and yucky, and you don't like doing that, and it's not comfortable. So these are 3 of many different types of questions that you could ask if you've done that first step by identifying what you want to do and where you want to do it. These questions sound like, are there any other companies I should be looking at? So if you list off, some of the companies I'm in, I want to do financial planning, some of the companies I'm looking at are XYZ, PDQ. Are there other companies I should be looking at? The person may say, well, I do business with this company. How come they're not on your list? They're the people I use for my financial planning. You never know. There are going to be people who don't know, but your job is to ask questions that people can answer. Based on what I'm looking for, is there anyone you would suggest I reach out to? This is how you get introduced to new people, right? If you knew everybody that you needed to know, you probably would be doing that already, but you're not. So let your friends introduce you to people they think you should meet, right? Or do you know anyone who works at any of these companies that I'm interested in, and could you introduce me? Right? Those are very simple asks. You're not asking for a job. You're asking for people to give you advice, information, or recommendations. And I hope that makes networking or having these conversations with your 100 contacts easier, more doable, something that you're not going to procrastinate on. What I'm trying to help you understand is that you want to be driving your job search. You want this to be a proactive job search, one in which you are driving the process. You're going to research the company. You're going to ask for contacts inside of each company, and you're going to find employees to talk to. So what I have to remind people is, in order to be targeting a specific company, that company does not need to have an opening, because many companies have openings that we just don't know about. They don't advertise them. So if they don't advertise them, how do you think you're going to find out about them? By talking with employees who work inside the company, because they are incented to refer people that they know from the outside. They're incented through financial bonuses or perks or other things. If they refer a candidate and that candidate accepts a job, they get a chunk of change, they get a prize, they get something. So actually, by getting referred in, you're helping your friend make more money. So you're doing them a favor too. I talked earlier about the growth in remote jobs. Just there's a greater availability of remote jobs. And so a lot of times people don't know where to go to look for remote jobs. And there's a lot, we always have to be sort of cautious about these remote jobs, because there were the olden days work from home scams, and I don't want you falling victim to any of those. So you want to try and stay away from things that sound too good to be true, because they probably are. But LinkedIn, if any of you are on LinkedIn, has created jobs that allow you to link by remote work. So when you go to the LinkedIn job board, you can actually create a search just based on remote work and other criteria. Indeed, and many of the other job boards have begun doing that as well. But there's some job boards that just specifically targeted on remote work. One of them is weworkremotely.com, remote.co, and Working Nomads. Working Nomads gets a little bit more creative, like, okay, you can be a blogger working on a beach in Florida and traveling the world or whatever. So, but check out all three of them and see which best suits you based on the kind of work that you are looking for. Um, the reality is that more and more companies, in order to fill the need that they have, are open to starting workers remotely. Could that change once the company opens up and has more workers coming in? We don't know. Nobody knows. Ideally, the company probably would like to have everybody in one place, but some companies have really adjusted well, and a lot of employees prefer working remotely part-time. Not all the time. They wouldn't mind going into the office 1 or 2 days a week. But for a lot of companies, they're going to be sticking with remote work for at least the next year. So I think that just to round out your job search and to make sure you don't miss out on opportunities that you might be a good fit for, check out some of those remote job boards. Whenever you start going to the remote job boards or Indeed or LinkedIn, you're now in part of a reactive job search. In other words, you're reacting to what's being posted, which isn't bad as long as you do that less than you're doing the proactive job search, 80% proactive, 20% reactive, right? That kind of a balance. But when you find a job, I want you to do the two-step is what I call it. You find a job and then you tell everybody in your network, everybody that you know, hey, who do you know that works at XYZ company? There's a great job there and I want to get the inside scoop. Can you introduce me to somebody? So that's find a job, find an insider, because that insider could end up being a referral for you. And if you get referred, your chances of getting interviewed just increased significantly. So find that insider for every single job that you apply for. Oftentimes that insider will give you information that you would not have found out until ever, or you may have found out only during the interview, and that can be really helpful for your decision making. They may be able to give you an idea of what the pay rate is. They may be able to tell you what the company culture or what the work environment is. They may be able to tell you of other things going on that make it either a really good company to work for or not a good company to work for. So find a job, find an insider. In a lot of the research that I've done and a lot of the studies that are published out there, the top source of external hiring, in other words, when companies report this is where we get our people from, that has for the last 5 years, the number one source has always been referrals. In other words, very few companies fill their jobs by job postings. About 10% of their job postings convert into hires. That's a very, very small percentage. And yet for job seekers that I know, they spend the majority of their time only applying for jobs online. But that success rate is 10% or less. So why are you doing that? That's why being proactive and having conversations with people that you can meet inside companies is so much more powerful. The other stat is that 65% of referred candidates are interviewed. Or let me say that another way. Referred candidates are interviewed 65% of the time. So if you want to be interviewed more often, all you need to do is get referred. Simple. Easier said than done, I know. But by following that path of find a job, find an insider, talk to your 100 contacts and ask everybody you know, who do you know who works inside this company? Say, well, there's a job there I'm really interested in and I want to talk to somebody. You're likely out of those 100 people to know that somebody knows somebody inside that target company. And the other thing that we know is that not all jobs get posted, right? So if you're not pursuing jobs proactively, in other words, you're not working from a target list of companies that you might want to work for, you're going to miss some jobs because they never made it to public. And that would be a shame because those are companies that you might be actually a good fit for, but you'll never know about them because they didn't publish it. They only went by referrals. And that's what you need to tap into. I think one of the things that job seekers struggle with a lot is how to manage their time and stay motivated. Is anyone else struggling with that? Yeah, I know, right? So Procrastination is real. I suffer from it a lot. And I own my own business, and there's nobody looking over my shoulder and making me do stuff. So I've had to employ some tricks, psychological tricks to get myself to do stuff. These are the same tricks that many job seekers have been using for a long time. But let me start by saying you already have the basis, the beginning part of what you're going to do Monday through Friday. You're going to work your 3 lists. The star stories, once they're done, you're pretty much done with them. But every day you're going to be looking at your 50 target companies and your 100 contacts, and you're going to say to yourself, who do I need to reach out to today from my list of 100 contacts? You're not going to send one email blast to all 100 contacts. You're going to send an individual email or make a phone call to each one of those people individually. So it makes sense to do 3 to 5 people a day, 3 to 5 people a week, based on how much time you can give to this job search, right? So if you say, okay, every day I'm going to whittle away at my list of 100 people, and I'm going to reach out to 3 people. So 3 people divided by 100, what is that, like 33 days? That's 33 days for half an hour activity. That's a lot to keep you busy, right? The other question you're going to ask is, who do I need to meet inside target companies? When you've identified your 30 to 50 target companies, you can go to LinkedIn and you can look at people who have the same job title that you are looking for and write their names down on a piece of paper. So the next time that you reach out to your 100 contacts, you can say, does anyone know Stacy Smith? Because she works at XYZ company, and I'd love to talk with her about the job that she's doing there. That's a very specific question, and it's something that anybody could help you with. It's not an imposition. It doesn't make you feel yucky. It's an easy ask. The other thing that your list is going to drive you to do is to keep up to date with what's happening in each one of those 30 to 50 target companies. You want to be monitoring the news. Did they get a new contract? Did they just lay off 100 people? What's happening with them, and what is going on in your industry? You want to make sure that you use this time during your job search to make sure that your skills are up to date, that your knowledge of the industry is up to date, that you take a look outside of the bubble that you were in. You were in your company and you knew the processes and procedures and what was going on there very well, but you didn't know about what was going on in the other companies around you outside of your company. This is that time where you can use that knowledge to make intelligent choices and to up your own personal knowledge will make you more valuable to your next employer. So those are the things that you're going to ask yourself every day. I have some tips, and these are the things that I use to keep me on track, because I have a tendency of getting off track quite easily. Procrastination, procrastination, procrastination. Set a timer. You can do anything if you know there's an end time, right? So if you have this chore that you don't like to do, okay, I've got to call, I've got to reach out to these 5 people or whatever, set a window of time by which you have to do it and set a timer. The other thing that using a timer for is it also gives you, it stops you from getting lost on the internet. There's been a lot of research that shows, we start out on, researching a company, but then the next thing we know, we click on an ad and we're surfing and looking for stuff on Amazon. Those distractions are real, and we all have a tendency to fall victim to them. But if you set a timer, you're much less likely to get stuck in that rabbit hole and go down the rabbit hole and get off track. So set a timer. That can be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, whatever it is you think, and hold true to that. This is really good for exercise for resume revamping. If you're going to be revamping your resume, give yourself 1 hour to do it. Okay, today I'm going to work on my resume for 1 hour, period, and then I'm going to move on to another task. Because I've known people who've spent all day long rewriting their resume and they've got nothing to show for it. Or the people who spend 3, 4, 5 hours drafting a cover letter. It should not take you 4 hours to draft a cover letter. If it's taking you that long, there's something else going on. Use a template, customize the template. You want to get it down to about 30 minutes where you can customize your cover letter in 30 minutes. Set a timer. Don't let yourself get caught deep in spending 3 or 4 hours on a cover letter that may or may not even get read. You need to invest your time wisely. And the other thing that I think oftentimes we do is we set goals that are very lofty, right? Your goal to get a job by the end of the month, which is now tomorrow, or is it today, is not going to happen, right? So that was an unrealistic goal. You want to say, let me reach, I'm going to set achievable, time-specific little goals, right? So a goal might be, I'm going to email 5 people from my 100 contacts list today. Right? I can do that. I can get that done. That's not something that I need a lot of help with. Writing the first one might be hard, but after that, the other 4 get easier, right? Using that time to lump like activities together, there's economy of scale, it makes it easier. So set realistic goals for yourself and create to-do lists. I'm not really a great fan of to-do lists. I have another plan of how I deal with that. The other thing that's so important during job search is to schedule me time, you time. I don't care when you schedule it in your day, but you need to carve out time just for you, for your interest, your passion, your hobby, your mental well-being, exercise, whatever it is you love doing, you need to carve out specific time for that. And it's not a whole day, unless it is a whole day, but it really should be a small, manageable piece of time. If you were really working in a job, you know, you'd have time probably after hours where you would have your me time. But now that you're working from home in your job search, you can schedule me time anytime that works for you. But hold that as a very precious amount of time on your calendar. Don't let other things get in the way. Don't let family obligations intrude on your me time. Your me time is just as important as anything else that you're doing, because that's your mental health. That's going to help you stay healthy mentally. One of the tricks that I use to hold myself accountable and eliminate some of the procrastination that I fall victim to is to use time chunks or designated times. So this is how if I were a job seeker, this is very similar to how I structure my day now, but I've modified it for job seekers, right? So you have to know when you are doing your best thinking. My best thinking is the morning, so I tend to pack a lot more in the morning than I do the afternoon. But from 6 to 7, I am going to be doing my knowledge update, which is when I read the articles related to my industry. I read periodicals that have to do with the Rochester area. I might even spend some of that time doing my online coursework when I'm taking skill development classes. From 7 to 8 is my LinkedIn time. I respond to messages, post activities, leave comments, tweak my profile, 7 to 8. From 8 to 9, I do my online applications, 1 hour. I'm not really applying to that many jobs, so 1 hour should be enough to get 2 applications or so done. From 9 to 10 is my phone time, and that is time where this is what I like doing the least, I pick up the phone and call people. I have a list of people that I know I have to call. They're from my contact list, right? And these are 5 people that email's not going to work. I know I have to talk to them in person, so that's my phone time. It's also the time where I call people back, right? So if I've gotten a message, I use my 9 to 10 time to call those people back. From 10 to 12 is open, and so I can use that time however I see fit, but I need to leave a window of time open every day to schedule future meetings, like the one I would have with on Tuesday, you see at 10. I have a Zoom with Sam Smith. If I had everything scheduled back to back, then I wouldn't have that window of opportunity to schedule that meeting with Sam. From 12 to 1, I have my call with Sarah Smith. So that's good thing I have that window of time availability. And then 3 to 4 is my email time. We have this habit of checking email every 2 minutes, and that's the biggest time waster. If you want to say, okay, once a day is not enough, I need twice a day, then great, set twice a day. But you do not need to be checking your email every 5 minutes. That is not a good use of your time. It's wasting your precious time. And what are you doing with that information anyway? So those, and then I have my precious me time, right? So I use those blocks of time. So when I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I've got going on that day. There's no second guessing, right? I've got a chunk of time and I know what I'm going to do. So I find this really helps me as a business owner make sure that I hold myself accountable, because if I don't have anything on my calendar, I'm like, oh, I'm free today, right? But I'm not really free, nor are you. So that might be something that will help you. I think having the right expectations is really important, and making sure that you realize that there's only so much of this process that you can influence. Companies take a long time to hire, and it's not realistic to expect that you will have a job in 1 month. There's too much stuff going on. It takes employers a long time to make this happen. I don't know what is more reasonable. I usually say 3 to 6 months is optimistic. I think 6 to 9 months is probably even more realistic, but it depends on what kind of job you're looking for, and it depends on the industry. So it's really hard to give an absolute, but to say that you have to have a job in 1 month is very, very optimistic. It usually takes a little bit longer than that, just because employers are slow in hiring and responding and getting people through the pipeline. Now, there are things that you can do to influence that, like being really, really more active, having more target companies, and doing a lot more, investing more time in some of these activities. The more people you reach out to, the more likely you are to expedite your job search. So there are things that you can do to speed that up, but not so much, not an awful lot. We just have to be real about what it's taking. The other tip that I will share is reward yourself for small wins. So if tomorrow you have a recruiter responds to you inside a company, celebrate, have a party, do something to treat yourself. Go get an ice cream cone, whatever it is. You need to reward yourself for even the smallest wins. If you finish your resume today and it's a half an hour early, woohoo, party! Go do something for yourself so that you really can enjoy that. I think one of the things that I know works, I've seen the data, it's proven time and time again, is that when you work with an accountability partner, somebody that you check in with on a scheduled basis every week, you're much more likely to get what you need done, and you're much more likely to follow through. And because you're much more likely to follow through, you're much more likely to get a job faster. I used to run a job club, and we knew that these job clubs were so important to job seekers finding a job faster. We'd compare. These are the people in the job club, and these are the people who aren't in a job club. And time after time, the people in the job club would find jobs faster than the people who were trying to do it on their own. So you don't need to join a formal club. You can start one amongst your colleagues, your friends, your family, whomever. But make a good agreement that they're not going to let you off the hook if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Overall, if we shift our thinking, you shift your thinking, this job search is hard. You've got to be kind to yourself. But you also have to have an optimistic outlook. Look for the good out there. There are lots of good things out there. There are lots of happy people. There are lots of good companies. There are lots of great success stories. So always be on the lookout for the good. And focus on the positive. Control what you can control and let go of what you can't control. You can't control that somebody's not getting back to you. You can't control that you've been ghosted. You can't control that some company says you're too old for the job. You can't control that stuff. Move forward and know that it's their loss, not yours. Keep moving forward, and do some positive self-talk. Positive affirmations really make a big difference. I want you to look yourself in the mirror in the morning, as crazy as this sounds, and say, Hannah, you're going to get a great job in the near future, and the employer is going to be lucky to have you. That kind of positive self-affirmation works. Let's obsess over LinkedIn for a few minutes here, because I think where in the olden days before LinkedIn was really popular, we thought we'd obsess over our resume and we'd spend hours and hours. But that resume, where does that reside? On your desktop. It's hidden behind all of these walls of security. Your LinkedIn profile is publicly viewable to everybody. It's an online 24/7 resume. So you really want to put more time and effort into making sure your LinkedIn profile is top notch. It's an employer magnet, I like to call it, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some thought, and I want to give you some of the best pointers and things for you to consider. This is not an all-inclusive review of obsessing over LinkedIn, but many of these things are super important, and I wanted to draw attention to them so that you didn't overlook them. First and foremost is your photo makes a first impression, and I'm not suggesting you get a professional headshot. You can take a have somebody take a very good picture of you with your cell phone. And that's all you need. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, but you want to have a neutral background like you see these people have had here. It's a wall. It's nothing fancy, right? But get a decent headshot, one of you smiling, that's your full face, and it's just from the shoulders up. That one thing can make a huge difference. It's got to be lit well. You've got to be able to see the face. So if you haven't updated your profile picture, make sure it looks like one of these, okay? It's just a nice clean headshot, head and shoulders only. The other thing that sounds insignificant, but it could be more important than you think, is that banner on your LinkedIn profile. Behind your headshot is a chance for you to use a background image or a hero image, and it's a chance for you to brand yourself, right? And it shows that you have advanced knowledge of the importance of LinkedIn imaging. So try your best to include a background image that indicates who you are professionally. It might show a personal interest, but it also might show something that is important that you would love to have a conversation and an interview about. These are the three most important areas of your LinkedIn profile, and they deserve the most time and attention. One is your headline, and we're going to take a look at that. Two is your about section, and three is your skills. So I give you the number of characters that you have, which isn't a lot for some of these. You have 120 characters for your headline, 2,600 characters for your about section, and 50 skills and experience. So you can have up to 50 skills. All three of these are super important. Wrong way. Here are some examples of good headlines, and you'll notice they all sort of follow a different pattern. They include the job title in there. Some of them include those fancy check marks, which are easily put in there with from Wingdings or whatever. But they do include more than just a technical writer, IT professional, medical nerd open to new opportunities. They've listed the most important information to the employer first. Not open to new opportunities first, but last, because that's the least important information that an employer wants to know about you. What they want to know is, what can you do? What are you skilled in? So here are some good examples, as you can see, that are all a little bit different, that help people write a better headline that's 120 characters. I think you're better off using any of these than just saying you're open to new opportunities. Your about section is a little challenging to write. It is the answer to tell me about yourself in an interview. So you're going to use the word I or me or my. The first two sentences are super important. That's how you're hooking the audience in to want to read more. Using bullets is not something that you can easily do, but you can copy and paste some of these from Word, Microsoft Word, that will input, that are HTML compatible, which makes it easier to read on the eye. And then at the very bottom, having a string of keywords or skill sets that you really want people to find your profile for. They're not words you have to use in context. They're just there because they do count, and you know employers would be looking for them. So that's your about section, and there are lots and lots of articles about how to write a really great about section. Just start with putting in more than you have there right now, right? Less is not more when it comes to the about section. You want to use as many of the 2,600 characters as possible. you should use almost all of the 50 skills that you have available in your profile, because that's another way employers can find you. So you want to make sure that you're using the skills that employers are searching for, the in-demand skills, and those are the jobs that those are listed in the job posting. So you want to make sure that if they're looking for somebody who knows accounts payable, that you have listed accounts payable. If they're looking for project management, you want to make sure that you're using project management as your skills. So go through the several job postings and make sure that all of those keywords that they're using, that you've got if you've got those skills, make sure they're also in your skill section on LinkedIn. I think often people disregard how important or significant their experience section is. Not only is the job title super important, VP Technology, Global Team Leadership, Operations Management, you can put a lot of good information in there, but it's also important to describe what you did for that company. Don't just put a couple of words like managed a team of 12. You really want to make sure that you explain the scope of the work of what you were doing and add some more context there. It's almost as if someone in an interview said, what were you responsible for in that job? How would you answer that question? That's what you want to put in your LinkedIn profile. And the other thing that I want to share is that sometimes you can embed pictures underneath the job. So if you did it work in marketing and you had an ad campaign, you definitely want to share that. LinkedIn does give you the ability to turn on this open to new opportunities feature, and I would expect every single one of you that is looking for work would turn that on. It helps employers understand that you are open for new work. It might open the door for new opportunities, but more importantly, it lets your network or your connections on LinkedIn know that you're open to new opportunities, because they're the ones who are more likely to want to help you. And if they see that, they can offer their help. There is a new feature, and LinkedIn just went through a whole new update and they made a lot of changes. So if you haven't logged in recently, you might want to. But one of the new features is the featured section, where you can highlight articles that you've posts that you've liked, articles you've written, or images of things that events you may have attended or things like that. So one of the things that we know is that whenever you use pictures on social media like LinkedIn, the reader, the viewer, automatically stays on that page just a little bit longer, because the visual image is triggering the brain to stick around and see what else is going on. The other thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that you can customize your LinkedIn URL. There is a way to do that when you add your profile section. It gives you the opportunity, and it should only be your first and last name. LinkedIn by default will give you this long series of letters and numbers, and you don't want to use that. You want to use just your name, first name, last name, if that's available, because you're going to put it at the top of your resume. And you're going to make sure that your email signature block includes your telephone number, your LinkedIn profile. I think a lot of people overlook that. Your email, whenever you send an email to somebody, you have the opportunity to use a signature block. We use it in the workplace all the time, right? Our employer made us do that. It was good marketing. Well, if it's good for your employer marketing, it's great for you, the job seeker marketing. Make sure that you have your LinkedIn URL and your contact information in every email you send. And that's a feature of every email system. It's called a signature block. Go ahead and set that up once now, and it will automatically append to every message that you send. Makes it really simple for you, and you never know who's going to get an email from you. Engage with your connections. It's great to have a good LinkedIn profile, but you need to be engaging. So in order to engage, you have to know what people are saying. In order to know what people are saying, you have to log in on a regular basis, whether that's daily or more, right? So oftentimes what people will do is just like thumbs up. Like we do that on Instagram, we do that on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, a thumbs up or a smile or a heart is not as good as a comment. So I'm going to challenge you, if you want to like something, then Always, always, always leave a comment. Tell the person why you like this article. What can you add? Did the article bring home a really important point for you? Then tell them what that was. This really hit home this valid point. I wasn't aware that that was important, or whatever, right? Leave a comment. Even just saying, thank you so much for taking the time to write this article. I learned a lot is better than just liking it. What do you comment on is probably most important. I want it to be relevant to the jobs that you are looking for. If you're looking for a job in banking or finance, then you should be commenting on articles that are on LinkedIn that are related to banking and finance, not on job search related issues. The thing to know is whenever you like or comment, that is activity is viewable to anybody looking at your profile. Anybody can see that. So always be positive, always say good things. But it's a good thing that people can see that because it's showing that you're active on LinkedIn. Following hashtags can help you find some of those great articles and comments in areas related to your industry or where you're looking. So if you're looking for a job in finance or banking, search for the hashtag finance or banking and you'll see posts that have those hashtags. Here's what I want you to do before you are doing anything with LinkedIn. I want you today to go look at your dashboard on LinkedIn. And when you log into LinkedIn, it's right on your homepage there, your dashboard, and it will show you who has viewed your profile, how many people have viewed your post, and what your search audience appearance number is. I want you to record those numbers because that's your benchmark. That's your before number. After 2 or 3 weeks, I want you to go look at your dashboard again, because if you've done the right stuff, every single one of those numbers will be higher and you'll know it's working. And then you can congratulate yourself and have a party. But if those numbers aren't getting bigger, then you know that what you're doing isn't working and you're going to have to get some help and reassess and reevaluate. So, whew, right? That was a lot to handle. But so we sort of look over some of the key points that were talked about today, my advice, my words of encouragement, my wish for all of you is to become more proactive and strategic and look for people, not for jobs. To be disciplined and to hold yourself accountable in whatever it takes. Stop procrastinating. To spend more of your time, the goal up to 70% of your time, networking, talking with people, having conversations with people who can fill your information gaps. Don't job search alone, and definitely maximize the power of LinkedIn. And I want to thank you all so much for being here. Are there questions? I know we're right at the top of the hour here, so if there are questions, let me know.
Hannah, there was a question that came in and I put it in the chat, but I can read it as well. What advice would you give if you've reached out to an old colleague and the colleague never contacts you back? How many how many times do you
Yeah.
reach out before moving on?
That's so sad. I hate it when that happens. But we're making all kinds of preconceived judgment about why they're not reaching out. Maybe they didn't get your message. Maybe it was sent to a bad email address. Maybe they had been out of the office and it fell to the bottom. Maybe they accidentally deleted it. Maybe there's a crisis going on in their life. Maybe we don't know, right? So the only thing that we can do is to resend that message. And I think a week is perfectly acceptable to either forward that message to them again with a new note on top saying something like, I'm not sure you saw this, but I wanted to follow up. It would be great to reconnect with you, and send that again in a week. If you still don't hear anything after a week, I would try one more time and then follow up monthly after that. So I would do 3 weeks in a row and then monthly after that. And at some point you'll cut your losses and move forward. But the thing is, we really don't know why they're not responding. It could be that they're not at that job any longer. Who knows? That's a great question though. And I don't want you to get frustrated by that, right? That's my thing. Don't be frustrated. Just keep moving along. You just don't know. Was that your question, Taryn? That was a good question. Are there other questions that people have on there, Stacy?
No more questions, but if anybody has one and they don't want to unmute, go ahead and type it in the chat and I'll read it out. There was so much information in the presentation, they're still processing.
Well, and so here's the good thing, right? Remind them, Stacy, that this is going to be, this was recorded and it's going to be up on the
YouTube.
library's YouTube channel.
And
So,
I will send all of you the link to the YouTube channel so that you can watch it as soon as I get it up there. You'll get a link.
so
So
yeah, and I think oftentimes if once there is, I do throw things out very quickly. So if you, now that you have the opportunity to go back and listen to it, I think it might help. It was such a pleasure being here. I really, I thank you, Stacy, and the Massachusetts Public Library, and thank you to all of you that gave your time today to be here. I hope that you've walked away with at least one new idea that's going to make your job search that much easier, more productive.
thank you, everyone, and thank you, Hannah. It was a great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Good luck to all of you. Bye.